If you think you've heard every strange case in America, think again. Because tonight's story will make you question everything you thought you knew about death, truth, and justice. Subscribe if you dare, because the truth doesn't stay buried for long. The night was cold, and the rain came down hard over the small town of Willow Creek, Minnesota. The streets were nearly empty, just the hum of distant streetlights flickering and the faint echo of a passing train. At exactly 11:47 p.m., a call came into the Willow Creek Police Department. The number was familiar. It belonged to Karen Miller, a single mother who lived on the outskirts of town. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Please, you have to send someone. My daughter just called me." The dispatcher, Officer Reed, tried to keep his tone calm. "Ma'am, can you repeat that? Your daughter called you?" "Yes," Karen whispered. "But she's been missing for 3 days." The line went silent for a moment. Reed leaned forward in disbelief. "Missing? You mean, your daughter who was reported missing on Sunday?" Karen's breath hitched. "Yes, Emily. She called me. I heard her voice." The dispatcher felt a chill crawl up his spine. According to the case file, Emily Miller, age 16, had disappeared after attending a friend's birthday party the previous weekend. Her last known location was near Old Highway 32, a stretch of road that locals avoided after dark. Her phone had been off since that night. Yet somehow it had just dialed home. When officers arrived at Karen's house, the rain had turned into a heavy downpour. The front porch light flickered, reflecting in puddles scattered across the yard. Inside, Karen sat in the living room clutching her cell phone, her hands shaking so hard she could barely hold it. Detective Daniel Shaw, a veteran investigator in his 40s with tired eyes and a quiet demeanor, knelt beside her. "Karen, I need you to tell me exactly what happened." She looked at him with tear-streaked cheeks. "It was her. I swear it was Emily's voice. She said, 'Mom, I'm scared. He won't let me go.'" Then the line cut off. Detective Shaw exchanged a glance with his partner, Officer Lena Torres. They had seen grief twist people's minds before, but this was different. "When did the call come through?" Torres asked. "Just 15 minutes ago," Karen said. "Look," she showed them her call log. The number displayed wasn't random. It was Emily's number. Torres frowned. Could someone else have her phone? Karen shook her head. "It was her voice. I know my daughter's voice." Shaw took the phone and checked the call metadata. The number was registered to Emily's device. But what caught his eye wasn't just the number, it was the location tag that showed the call's origin. "Lena," he said, "look at this." The GPS ping showed the call originated from Riverside Park Cemetery. 2 patrol cars were dispatched immediately. The rain had lightened, but the fog was thick as milk. When they arrived at the cemetery, their headlights illuminated rows of gravestones glistening under the mist. The radio crackled as Shaw and Torres stepped out, flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Dispatch, this is Detective Shaw. We're at Riverside. No signs of anyone yet." They moved carefully through the narrow paths between graves. The night was silent except for the crunch of wet gravel under their boots. Then Torres stopped. "Dan," she whispered. "Over here." Lying beside a large oak tree was a cell phone, half buried in mud. Shaw crouched down and brushed it off. The screen flickered weakly, cracked but functional. The lock screen photo was unmistakable, Emily Miller, smiling in her high school soccer uniform. But there was something else, a voicemail notification. Shaw played it. The recording was faint but clear. "Mom, he's watching me. I don't know where I am. Please, help me." The message ended with a sound, a door creaking followed by footsteps. Then silence. Torres exhaled sharply. "That's not a live call. That's a recording." Someone wanted her mom to hear that. Shaw nodded grimly. "But who, and why now?" He bagged the phone carefully. "We'll get this to forensics. I want to know when this message was sent." The following morning, the media descended on Willow Creek. "The ghost call case," one headline read. Rumors spread fast. Some said the girl was still alive, others whispered that something supernatural was happening. But Shaw didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in patterns, timelines, and people who make mistakes. At the precinct, forensics confirmed something chilling. The voicemail timestamp showed it had been sent 3 hours after Emily was officially declared dead in the police report draft, based on the initial 72-hour missing threshold. Shaw frowned. "That's impossible. The phone battery was supposed to be dead 2 days ago." "Unless someone charged it," Torres muttered. They traced the cell tower pings. Emily's phone had moved 3 miles south, near an abandoned property once owned by the Parker family, a name familiar to Shaw. Years earlier, that same location had been the site of another disappearance, a teenage girl never found. Shaw looked out the rain-streaked window. "We're going there tonight." That evening the storm returned. Shaw and Torres parked near the decaying farmhouse. The porch had collapsed and the windows were shattered. Inside, the air smelled of mold and rust. Their flashlights swept across peeling wallpaper and forgotten furniture. Then they found something: footprints in the dust. 2 sets. One small, one large. "Dan," Torres said, her voice low. "Someone's been here recently." In the corner of the living room sat an old rotary phone, disconnected from any line, but the receiver was off the hook. Shaw picked it up. Dead silence. Then, faintly, static. Torres looked uneasy. "Let's get out of here." But before they left, Shaw's radio buzzed. "Detective Shaw, this is dispatch. We've just received another call." He froze. "From who?" "Same number. Emily Miller's." Shaw's pulse quickened. "Where's it coming from this time?" The dispatcher hesitated. "From your location." Torres turned to him slowly. "Dan?" Her phone still in evidence lockup. A cold wind blew through the broken window, and somewhere in the darkness, a door creaked open upstairs. Shaw reached for his flashlight. "We're not alone." The beam caught movement at the top of the stairs, a flicker of a shadow gone as quickly as it appeared. The static on the radio deepened, turning into a faint whisper. Then a voice. "Mom? Please don't let him find me again." Torres's eyes widened. That's her voice. The lights flickered. The radio cut off. And in that exact moment, Shaw's phone buzzed. An incoming text message. The sender, Emily Miller. The message read, "He's standing right behind you." Rain fell hard that morning, washing the quiet town of Helena, Montana, in a gray stillness. The investigation into Lily Harper's disappearance had gone cold months earlier. Detectives had followed every possible lead, friends, co-workers, her social media trail, but everything led to a dead end. Her phone had last pinged near the edge of a remote hiking trail, and after that it went dark. The only thing that remained haunting her mother, Denise Harper, was that one chilling phone call she received 2 weeks after the search had ended. It wasn't a voicemail or a prank. It was her daughter's voice, trembling, whispering her mother's name before the line went dead. For Denise, that moment shattered what little peace she had left. Detective Ryan Cole, a veteran with the Helena Police Department, had handled countless cases in his 15 years on the job, but something about this one refused to leave his mind. The night shift felt colder when he looked at Lily's photo on his desk. The bright smile, the blue scarf, the missing poster that had begun to fade at the corners. He remembered Denise's voice when she came into the precinct again that morning, insisting someone was still watching her house, someone who didn't want her to stop asking questions. Most officers dismissed it as a grieving mother's imagination, but Ryan didn't. Not after what the phone records revealed. The number that called Denise hadn't been spoofed. It was registered to Lily's own cell, a phone that had been logged as powered off for 13 days before that call was made. The signal had bounced off a tower near an abandoned service road, 10 miles from the original search site. It was impossible by all logic. Phones don't just turn themselves back on, make one call, and vanish again. But when Ryan drove out to the area, something about that road made him uneasy. The trees grew so thick that sunlight barely touched the ground. Tire tracks were visible but old. He found nothing except a torn piece of cloth tangled in a bush near the waterline, blue, the same color as the scarf in Lily's photo. Back at the station, the evidence room was nearly silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. Ryan logged the fabric sample for testing, but he already knew the result in his gut. Denise's story had substance. Later that evening, as the storm picked up again, Ryan sat in his car across from the Harper residence. He saw Denise through the window, clutching her phone, staring at it as if waiting for it to ring again. That's when a dark sedan rolled slowly past her house. No license plate on the front. Tinted windows. It didn't stop, but something about it felt deliberate, as if whoever was inside wanted to be seen. Ryan followed at a distance, headlights dimmed. The sedan turned onto an unmarked dirt path off the main road and disappeared into the trees. When he reached the curve, the car was gone. No lights, no engine sound, nothing. Just the faint smell of burnt rubber and rain. He got out, shined his flashlight around, and found fresh footprints in the mud, boot prints, size 12, leading deeper into the woods. He followed them for a while until they abruptly stopped, as though the person had vanished or climbed into another vehicle. Then his radio crackled to life. The dispatcher's voice was faint, barely cutting through the static, but clear enough to make his stomach drop. "Cole, you need to come back. We just got a hit from Harper's phone again. Same number, same timestamp as before." He looked down at his own phone, seeing the time, 9:47 p.m. Denise's house was over 10 miles away. Someone was playing with them. When he returned, the house was surrounded by flashing lights. Denise was outside, trembling, clutching her phone. "She called again," she whispered. Same voice, same words. "Mom, help me." The call had lasted less than 5 seconds. This time, Ryan requested immediate access to the network logs. The trace pointed to the same cell tower, the abandoned service road. The next morning, a forensic team swept the area again. Beneath a pile of fallen branches near the creek, they found fragments of a shattered burner phone and a silver ring with Lily's initials engraved inside. Ryan knew what it meant. Someone had been out there recently, someone who knew exactly how to mimic her voice, or someone who had access to recordings never meant to exist. The FBI got involved after that discovery, sending Special Agent Dana Keller, a digital forensic specialist with a reputation for cracking impossible cases. When she listened to the recorded call from Denise's voicemail, her face went pale. The waveform of Lily's voice contained irregular data spikes, fragments of digital manipulation layered over real audio. Someone had taken Lily's old social media clips and spliced them together to make her mother believe she was still alive. But why? The truth began to unfold when Keller ran a metadata trace on the reconstructed files. One of the digital fingerprints matched a username linked to an underground online forum that traded in grief scams, elaborate hoaxes targeting families of missing persons. The operator behind that account had connections to multiple cold cases across the country. He went by the alias Echo. Ryan and Keller dug deeper, tracing every payment, IP address, and timestamp linked to the alias. One account led to a man named Travis Monroe, a former sound engineer who had worked on true crime podcasts before disappearing 2 years earlier. His last known residence? A cabin near the same forest road where Lily's phone had last pinged. The pieces were coming together, but what haunted Ryan most wasn't the scam itself, it was the voice. It wasn't entirely synthetic. There were moments, milliseconds of raw emotion, where the voice trembled, cried, and called out with real pain. Someone was forcing those words out of her, or out of something that had once been her. As the night fell again, Ryan drove toward the cabin site with Keller beside him, the only sound between them the soft static of the police radio. The deeper they went, the more it felt like the woods themselves were holding their breath. By the time they reached the cabin, rain had started again, faint at first, then heavy. The door creaked open under Ryan's hand. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and dust. Old recording equipment filled the room, mixers, microphones, and hard drives labeled with case numbers and names. One of the labels read, "Harper Lily, Final Edit." Ryan's pulse quickened. The computer on the desk was still warm. Someone had been there recently. On the monitor, an unfinished audio file was still open, time-stamped only minutes earlier. And then, before either of them could react, a phone buzzed in Ryan's pocket. The caller ID read, "Lily Harper." The storm had barely lifted when Detective Cole found himself back at the precinct, staring at the drive he'd pulled from the old computer in the cabin. The file name still pulsed in his memory, Lily Harper, Final Edit. His hands trembled slightly as he slipped the flash drive into the evidence slot, logged it under Digital Archive, and waited for the system to open. It was nearly dawn, but his mind felt locked somewhere between exhaustion and dread. Every instinct told him that what he'd found wasn't just evidence. It was bait. The monitor flickered, revealing dozens of audio clips, video files, and folder names. Most were time-stamped weeks after Lily's disappearance, dates that shouldn't exist. He opened the first one labeled, Entry_01. A faint hum filled the speakers, then a girl's voice whispered, fragile and frightened, "If you're hearing this, it means he found me." Cole froze. The voice was young, scared, unmistakably human. It wasn't a recording from before she vanished, it was something else. Something that had been left behind intentionally. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. "Who the hell is he?" he muttered. Every clip carried the same tone, Lily speaking as if trapped somewhere, sometimes whispering, sometimes pleading. But what shook him most wasn't her words, it was the background sound, rain, echoing metal, footsteps pacing. He knew that sound. The cabin. By mid-morning, Cole had been at the station for almost 12 hours straight. He refused to go home. The chief noticed. "Cole, you need rest," he said, standing by the office door. "You've been chasing ghosts for days." Cole didn't look up. She wasn't a ghost. She was alive after the case was declared cold. Someone had her. His tone was steady but hollow. The chief sighed and left without replying. Cole spent the next hour replaying one particular clip, the one labeled Day 3. In it, Lily's voice was clearer, trembling but defiant. He thinks no one's looking. But someone always watches. The recording ended abruptly with a door slam and a male voice, distorted, low, almost taunting. Cole played it again and again, trying to isolate the sound. His software identified a faint echo pattern consistent with a basement or concrete room. His pulse quickened. The cabin's foundation was wood, not concrete. So where was she being held? He printed the coordinates embedded in the file's metadata, a habit of his, though it rarely led anywhere. But this time the numbers weren't random. They pointed to an old industrial park 2 miles outside town, long abandoned, half of it reclaimed by weeds and silence. By evening he was already there, flashlight in hand, the wind cutting through the broken windows. Dust swirled in the beam of light. The faint hum of a generator somewhere in the back hinted that someone had been there recently. Cole's chest tightened. He followed the sound through a corridor littered with old tools and faded signs. Then he found it, a locked metal door with deep scratches around the latch. He tried forcing it open, but it wouldn't budge. He crouched down, shining his light at the handle. The scratches weren't random. They were letters carved in shaky handwriting, help. He stepped back, heart pounding. Breaking through wasn't an option without backup, but something in him refused to wait. He took a deep breath, then rammed the door with his shoulder. The hinges gave way after the third hit, sending him stumbling into darkness. The air was thick, metallic. On the far wall, a faint blue light glowed from a small screen still running. Cole approached, breath shallow. The computer was recording, Rec 1 hour 24 minutes and 8 seconds. On screen there was a still image of a young girl tied to a chair, the same blue scarf around her neck. But what froze him wasn't her face. It was the timestamp, March 12, 2023, 2:11 a.m. That was 3 days after her disappearance. His entire body went cold. He yanked the hard drive from the setup, slipping it into his jacket. A sound echoed from the hall, a slow, deliberate footstep. Then another. He turned off his flashlight, heart pounding against his ribs, straining to listen. The steps stopped, replaced by a voice from somewhere in the dark. "Detective Cole," it said softly, male, calm. "You shouldn't be here." Cole's pulse spiked. He turned toward the sound but saw nothing. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice steady despite the panic clawing at him. The voice chuckled faintly. "You've been listening to her, haven't you? You think you're saving her. But you're just finishing what I started." The air felt colder. Cole reached for his weapon, keeping his light low. "Show yourself." Silence. Then the sound of a door creaking open somewhere behind him. He spun around, nothing. When he turned back, the blue light from the screen had gone dark. He backed toward the hallway, trying to find his way out, but the narrow corridor seemed to twist into unfamiliar turns. The place felt wrong now, like it was watching him. He reached a rusted exit door, shoved it open, and burst into the night air. The rain had started again, steady and cold. He sat in his car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, trying to calm his breathing. He replayed the voice in his head. It wasn't just random. It had recognized him. Whoever this man was, he'd been following the investigation. Maybe even inside the department. Back at the precinct, Cole uploaded the footage from the industrial park. The team analyzed it frame by frame. One of the techs called him over. "Detective, you might want to see this." She zoomed in on a reflection in the video, a shadow moving behind Lily. It wasn't the man speaking. It was someone smaller, shorter, wearing what looked like a uniform. Cole leaned closer. The reflection showed a police badge on the figure's chest. He stepped back, face pale. "That's impossible." The tech looked at him. "Sir, that badge looks like one of ours." Cole didn't sleep that night. The thought that someone within the department could have been part of Lily's disappearance made his stomach churn. He combed through internal logs, checking which officers had been on duty during the dates matching the files. Only one name appeared again and again, Officer Grant McCall, his former partner. At sunrise, Cole drove to McCall's house. The driveway was empty. The blinds closed. He knocked on the door, no answer. He walked around back, noticing the garage lights still on. When he pushed the door open, he saw McCall's car, trunk slightly ajar. Inside lay boxes of recording gear identical to what he'd seen in the cabin. Cole's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Cole." Pause. Then a whisper, Lily's voice, shaking, familiar. "He's here." The line went dead. Cole's breath caught. His phone screen still glowed blue in the darkened garage. And just as he raised his head, he saw the reflection of someone standing behind him, a man's silhouette framed by the doorway holding something in his hand. "Turn around," the voice said quietly. Cole froze. The voice wasn't Grant's. It was the same one from the industrial park. The storm outside hadn't eased. Rain fell hard against the cracked windows of the detective's garage, its sound merging with the faint hum of the city in the distance. The detective's breath fogged in the cool night air as he slowly turned toward the dark silhouette in the doorway. The faint blue glow from his phone lit part of the man's face, just enough to confirm his worst fear. It was Lieutenant Harris, his former superior and mentor. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The silence carried more weight than words. Harris stepped closer, his boots echoing softly on the concrete floor. His voice came out low, calm, and deliberate, the same tone he had used during every interrogation they'd done together. "You shouldn't have gone to that factory," Harris said, his eyes fixed on the detective. "You weren't cleared to reopen the case." The detective's grip tightened on his flashlight. "That recording, that wasn't just a random file, Harris. Someone was using department equipment. Someone who knew what they were doing." Harris gave a faint smirk, the kind that never reached his eyes. "You think I don't know? You think this department runs without my knowledge?" A wave of cold realization hit the detective. Every roadblock, every missing file, every unexplained redaction, it all led back to Harris. The evidence had been hidden not by incompetence but by design. Harris stepped fully into the blue light now, his badge glinting against his soaked jacket. "You've gone too deep," Harris continued, lowering his voice. "This case was supposed to die 5 years ago, just like the girl." The word struck hard. The detective's heart pounded as flashes of memory ran through his head. The photo of the missing girl, her mother's trembling hands as she begged for closure, the eerie voice message that had reignited the whole investigation. It was no longer just a case, it was personal now. "What did you do to her?" the detective asked, his voice shaking. Harris didn't answer directly. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the rain outside. "Sometimes, to protect the system, you have to bury the truth. The girl was never meant to be found. Neither were the others." The detective's mind reeled. Others? The word hung in the air like a blade. Before Harris could speak again, the faint crackle of a radio interrupted them. It came from inside the trunk, the same box of old police equipment the detective had been sorting through moments before. A faint voice whispered through the static, "He's there with you." The detective froze. The radio hadn't been powered on. Harris's expression hardened instantly, and in that second of hesitation, the detective lunged forward, grabbing the nearest evidence box and hurling it at him. The light shattered, plunging the room into a dim blur of blue shadows. A struggle broke out. The sound of fists against metal, grunts, and shuffling boots filled the air. Harris was stronger, older but built with years of police training. The detective fought to stay upright, pushing off the workbench and slamming Harris against the wall. For a brief moment, lightning from outside flashed through the window, and in that flash the detective saw it. A scar on Harris's wrist, the same scar visible in one of the video frames he had found earlier, the one showing the shadow behind the girl. Everything snapped into place. The fight ended when Harris drew his weapon. The detective froze, hands raised slightly. Harris's voice was low and tired now, almost regretful. "You should have left it alone." Then came the sound of sirens. Faint, distant, but growing louder. Harris's eyes widened. Someone had tipped them off. Maybe the lab tech. Maybe someone inside the department who still had a conscience. Harris took a slow step back toward the door, rain spilling in behind him. "You'll never prove it," he said, holstering his weapon. "Not everything that's buried stays dead." And with that, he disappeared into the rain. The detective stood motionless for several seconds, drenched and shaking. He glanced down at the trunk where the old radio still emitted faint static. Slowly he reached for it. A woman's voice, the same one from the recordings, came through again, clearer this time. "He's not done." The radio went dead. The detective stared at it in disbelief, realizing that this wasn't over. Somewhere in the shadows of the city, someone else was still out there, and whatever they were hiding went far deeper than a single missing girl. The storm outside intensified, thunder rolling over the rooftops as if echoing a warning. He grabbed his coat, the files, and the badge Harris had dropped during the fight. The truth was no longer a mystery to solve, it was a war to survive. And as he stepped out into the rain, the faint glow of blue sirens reflected off the wet asphalt, marking the beginning of something far darker than anyone had imagined. The rain hadn't stopped since that night in the garage. The whole city felt soaked in blue, flashing sirens reflecting off wet streets, the scent of diesel, and the haunting echo of thunder rolling over New Orleans. Detective Marcus Hale hadn't slept in 3 days. The voice on the radio, her voice, wouldn't leave his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the same thing, soft but desperate: "He's not done." Inside the precinct, the air was thick with the smell of old coffee and fear. News had spread fast. Lieutenant Harris was gone, vanished like smoke. His badge had been found in the river, his service pistol beside it, but no body. Officially it was declared a suicide. But Marcus knew better. The voice, the clues, the pattern, it wasn't over. Someone was still out there pulling the strings. On his desk lay the case file: Amelia Grant, missing, presumed dead. The same case that started it all. The file was worn, the corners soft from being opened too many times. A small photo of a smiling 17-year-old girl stared back at him. Long brown hair, braces, and bright eyes that once dreamed of college. She had disappeared one night walking home from a friend's house. Her body was never found. But 2 weeks later, her mother received a phone call. Caller ID showed Amelia Grant. The call lasted 54 seconds. The only sound? Heavy breathing and a whisper that froze her blood: "Mom, he's here." That single phone call had spiraled into a decade-long investigation that destroyed families, ruined reputations, and left the department fractured. Now, years later, Marcus was realizing what no one had dared to. The call wasn't from beyond the grave. It was from someone alive. He opened the old audio recording one last time, the sound crackling through his computer speakers. Beneath the static, Marcus heard something he'd missed before: faint, mechanical, almost like a timer or a ticking sound in the background. He isolated the frequency and boosted it. The hairs on his neck rose. It wasn't a clock. It was Morse code. Marcus scribbled the code down on a yellow notepad and ran the sequence through a translator. The message appeared on screen. "East Dock, midnight, come alone." The detective's stomach tightened. The East Dock had been abandoned for years, a place where forgotten cases went to die. He looked out the rain-soaked window, took a deep breath, and loaded his revolver. If this was the end, he was ready to face it. By midnight, the dock was a graveyard of rusted containers and flickering floodlights. The wind howled through the broken cranes, carrying whispers that didn't belong to the living. Marcus walked slowly, gun drawn, every step echoing off wet concrete. Then he saw her. A young woman stood by the edge of the pier, wearing a soaked hoodie, face hidden by shadows. When she turned, his heart stopped. It was Amelia. Older, thinner, eyes wide with years of fear. She was trembling. "They said you were dead," Marcus whispered. "I was," she said. "To them I had to be." She told him everything: how she'd escaped the night she vanished, how Lieutenant Harris and a ring of corrupt officers had been running a trafficking network, using missing persons cases to hide their victims. When she tried to expose them, Harris faked her death and buried the evidence. 4 years she'd been hiding, waiting for someone who wasn't part of the system to find the truth. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Why come back now? "Because he's not done," she said softly. "And he's here." A sharp click echoed behind them. Marcus turned. Harris stepped from the shadows, drenched, his face pale but his eyes alive with rage. The pistol in his hand gleamed in the cold blue light. "I told you to stay buried," Harris growled. "You buried enough," Marcus shot back, raising his weapon. The two men stood face to face, years of lies, betrayal, and guilt between them. Rain poured harder, lightning cracking over the water. Then a single shot cut through the storm. The echo rolled across the bay and vanished into the night. When the police arrived, they found Harris dead on the pier, his gun beside him. Marcus was sitting at the edge, staring into the dark water. Amelia was gone. No footprints. No trace. Only a single phone, her old phone, resting on the dock beside him. The screen lit up. An incoming call. Caller ID, Amelia Grant. Marcus answered, his hand shaking. Static filled the line, then a whisper, calm, familiar, chilling. "It's over, but you're next." The line went dead. Weeks later, Marcus turned in his badge. The department sealed the case as resolved. But late at night, he still heard the call replaying in his mind, still felt the cold weight of unfinished business pressing on his chest. The truth had come out, but not all of it. Somewhere, in the spaces between justice and revenge, something darker was still moving. As the credits would roll on a true crime docuseries, the narrator's voice would whisper what every viewer now wondered. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe because the next case is even colder.